Have you ever had a moment where your entire world crumbled in a single sentence? Where the people you trusted most became strangers in an instant? My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old, and I live in Chicago. What I'm about to tell you happened on what should have been one of the happiest nights of my life, my engagement dinner. It was supposed to be perfect. Family, friends, celebration, and the promise of forever with the man I loved. But sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who can destroy you most completely. Sometimes betrayal comes wrapped in a smile, served alongside champagne and congratulations. This is the story of how one confession changed everything, and how I learned that the person I thought I was had been built on lies. But before we begin, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell us where you're listening from. The Edison Chicago sparkled with warm light as our guests filled the private dining room. I had dreamed of this moment for months, the perfect engagement dinner in one of the city's most elegant venues. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over tables adorned with white roses and eucalyptus, while the Chicago River glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows. I smoothed down my emerald silk dress and watched David work the room, his confident smile never wavering as he shook hands with my father and laughed with his college friends. At 32, he was everything I had ever wanted: successful, charming, and devastatingly handsome. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his navy suit tailored to perfection. When he caught my eye across the room, he winked, and I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach. "You look radiant, sweetheart," my mother said, appearing beside me with 2 glasses of champagne. Margaret Collins was the epitome of Chicago society elegance: silver hair pulled into a perfect chignon, pearls at her throat, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. The Brennans seem lovely. David's mother is charming. I accepted the champagne gratefully. "I'm so nervous, Mom. I want everything to be perfect." "It is perfect, darling. Just like you planned." She squeezed my arm gently. "Have you seen your sister? She was looking for you earlier." My heart sank slightly. "No, not yet." "Is she sober?" "Yes, thankfully. She looks beautiful tonight. That red dress suits her." I spotted Jessica across the room, holding court near the bar. At 25, my younger sister had inherited all the dramatic flair that had somehow skipped me. Her auburn hair cascaded in waves down her back, and the crimson dress she wore clung to her curves in a way that made every man in the room take notice. She had always been the wild one, the rebel, the one who made our parents worry. While I had graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern and built a successful career in marketing, Jessica had dropped out of art school and spent the last few years bouncing between jobs, relationships, and what our mother diplomatically called phases. But tonight, she looked radiant, clean, put together in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Sarah!" She glided over, champagne flute in hand, and pulled me into a fierce hug. "Oh my God, you look absolutely stunning. This whole thing is incredible." Her green eyes sparkled with what I hoped was genuine happiness. "I can't believe my big sister is getting married. Thank you for being here, Jess. It means everything to me." I meant it. Despite our differences, despite the years of worry and drama, Jessica was my only sibling. I wanted her to be part of this moment. Wouldn't miss it for the world. She raised her glass. "To my amazing sister and her perfect life with her perfect man." Something in her tone made me pause, but before I could analyze it, David appeared beside us. "The famous Jessica," he said, extending his hand with that $1,000,000 smile. "I've heard so much about you." "All good things, I hope," Jessica replied, accepting his handshake. Her fingers lingered just a moment too long, and I noticed how her smile changed, became softer, more intimate somehow. "Only the best," David assured her. "Sarah adores you." "David," I interjected, slipping my arm through his, "we should probably start making the rounds. Dad wants to introduce you to his golf partners." "Of course. Duty calls." He kissed my cheek. "Save me a dance later, Jessica." As he walked away, I caught Jessica watching him, her expression unreadable. The dinner itself was everything I had imagined. My father, Robert Collins, stood to make a toast, his voice carrying the authority that had made him one of Chicago's most respected corporate lawyers. "Sarah has always been our little perfectionist," he said, his eyes finding mine across the room. "From the time she was 5 years old, organizing her toy box by color and size. We knew she was destined for great things. And David, from the moment we met you, we could see how much you adore our daughter. You're gaining a wonderful family, and we're thrilled to be gaining you. The room erupted in applause, and hear us. I felt tears prick my eyes as David stood and kissed me softly. To Sarah, David said, raising his glass, the most beautiful, intelligent, caring woman I've ever known. You've made me a better man, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of your love. More applause, more smiles, more warmth. Everything was perfect. The evening continued with dancing, laughter, and endless congratulations. David's best man, Marcus, regaled us with embarrassing college stories. My maid of honor, Rachel, cried happy tears as she hugged me. Even Jessica seemed to be enjoying herself, chatting animatedly with various guests and staying away from the bar. It wasn't until dessert was being served that I noticed Jessica had been drinking more than I initially realized. Her cheeks were flushed, her laugh a little too loud, her movements slightly unsteady. Jess, I whispered when I found her near the ladies' room. Maybe you should slow down a bit? I'm fine, Sarah. God, you're always so worried about everything. She waved me off, but I caught the slight slur in her words. I know, this night is important to me. Important. She repeated the word like it tasted bitter. Right. Your perfect night with your perfect fiancé. Jessica, what's wrong? You've been acting strange all evening. She stared at me for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. Nothing's wrong, big sister. Everything is exactly as it should be. But as she walked away, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the October weather outside. The evening was winding down when Jessica asked for everyone's attention. She stood near the head table, swaying slightly, her champagne flute raised high. The conversations died down as all eyes turned to her. I'd like to make a toast, she announced, her voice carrying across the room with crystalline clarity despite the alcohol I could smell on her breath. David reached for my hand under the table, squeezing gently. This should be interesting, he murmured. My mother shot me a worried look from across the room. My father's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only sign of his concern. To my sister Sarah, Jessica began, her smile bright and cold as winter sunlight. The golden child, the perfect daughter, the one who always does everything right. I felt my cheeks burn. Jess, maybe you should sit down. No, I'm not finished. She held up a manicured hand. See, everyone here thinks they know Sarah. They think they know what a wonderful person she is, how lucky David is to have found her, how perfect they are together. The room had gone completely silent. I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. Jessica! My father's voice carried a warning that would have silenced anyone else. But Jessica was beyond warnings now. She looked directly at me, and I saw something in her eyes that made my blood freeze. Not just drunkenness, something deeper, something that looked almost like hatred. But what nobody knows, she continued, her voice steady now, dangerously calm, is that perfect Sarah's perfect fiancé isn't quite so perfect after all. That's enough. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You're drunk. You don't know what you're saying. Oh, but I do know what I'm saying. Jessica's smile widened. I know exactly what I'm saying. Just like I knew exactly what I was doing 3 months ago when I slept with your fiancé. The words hit the room like a physical force. Gasps echoed from every table. Someone dropped a glass. The crash seemed to reverberate forever. I felt the world tilt sideways. What? You heard me, sister dear. David and I. 3 months ago. That weekend you went to that marketing conference in Milwaukee. Remember? You were so excited about your presentation on social media analytics. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning, faces blurring together into a kaleidoscope of shock and pity. I turned to David, waiting for him to deny it, to tell Jessica she was lying, that she was drunk and making things up. But David's face had gone white. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but no words came out. David! My voice sounded strange, hollow. Tell her she's lying. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. When David finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. Sarah, tell them she's lying. I screamed, my composure finally cracking completely. I can't. His words were so quiet I almost didn't hear them. I can't because it's true. The room erupted. Chairs scraped back as people stood. My mother let out a sound that was half gasp, half sob. My father's face had turned a dangerous shade of red, but I heard none of it. All I could hear was the sound of my own world collapsing. How? The word came out as a croak. How could you? Jessica laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass. Oh, it was easy. He came over looking for you. You weren't there, but I was. We had some wine. One thing led to another. She shrugged as if she were discussing the weather. You know how these things happen. I don't know how these things happen. I was sobbing now, makeup running down my cheeks, my perfect evening dress suddenly feeling like a costume for a part one no longer wanted to play. I thought you loved me. Both of you. I thought. Love. Jessica's eyes glittered with malice. You want to know about love, Sarah? You want to know what love really is? It's not your fairy tale bullshit. It's not your perfect plans and your perfect life. Love is messy. Love is complicated. Love is taking what you want when you want it. You're my sister, I whispered. You're supposed to protect me, not destroy me. For just a moment, Jessica's mask slipped. I saw something that might have been regret flicker across her face. But then it was gone, replaced by that cold, satisfied smile. Destroy you? Oh, sweetheart, I didn't destroy you. I saved you. I saved you from marrying a man who would cheat on you with your own sister. What do you think he would have done with a stranger? David found his voice again. Sarah, please let me explain. Explain what? I rounded on him, fury overtaking heartbreak for the moment. Explain how you fucked my sister. Explain how you've been lying to me for 3 months. Explain how you stood up here tonight and talked about being worthy of my love while you already knew you weren't. It was a mistake, he said desperately. It meant nothing. I was drunk and she. Don't you dare blame this on her. I laughed, and the sound was almost as cold as Jessica's had been. You made a choice. You both made choices, and your choice was to betray the person who loved you most in the world. I looked around the room at the faces of our family and friends. Some looked shocked, others embarrassed. A few seemed almost eager for the drama. These people had come here to celebrate with us, and instead they were witnessing the complete destruction of everything I thought my life was. This dinner is over, I announced, my voice surprisingly steady. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry you had to witness this. I turned to leave, but Jessica's voice stopped me. Sarah, wait. No. I didn't turn around. We're done. We're all done. And with that, I walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind my engagement ring, my perfect evening, and the ruins of my perfect life. I don't remember getting home that night. I must have called an Uber, must have given the driver my address, must have fumbled with my keys at the door of my Lincoln Park condo. But all of that is a blur. What I do remember is sitting on my bathroom floor at 3 a.m, still in my emerald dress, mascara streaked down my cheeks like black tears, staring at the engagement ring I had somehow ended up clutching in my fist. The ring was beautiful, a 2-carat solitaire that had belonged to David's grandmother. He had proposed on the shore of Lake Michigan 6 months earlier, dropping to one knee as the sunset painted the sky pink and gold. I had said yes immediately, practically before he finished asking the question. I thought I was the luckiest woman in the world. Now the ring felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My phone had been buzzing constantly since I left the restaurant. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails. I finally turned it off and threw it across the room, where it landed with a satisfying crack against the wall. The silence that followed was somehow worse than the constant buzzing. I stayed on that bathroom floor until sunrise, alternating between crying and sitting in numb silence. When the sun finally started streaming through my bedroom window, I forced myself to get up, shower, and change into sweatpants and an old Northwestern t-shirt. I looked like I had been hit by a truck, which was exactly how I felt. By Monday morning, I knew I couldn't avoid the real world any longer. I had a job, a good job at a prestigious marketing firm downtown. I had responsibilities, clients, a life that existed outside of the disaster my personal life had become. But walking into the office felt like being thrust onto a stage where everyone knew the script except me. Conversations stopped when I passed. Colleagues who had been at the engagement dinner looked at me with expressions ranging from pity to curiosity to barely concealed gossip-hungry excitement. Sarah, my boss, Patricia, called me into her office within an hour of my arrival. "How are you holding up?" Patricia Hartwell was a force of nature, a 50-something woman who had built the firm from nothing and ruled it with an iron fist wrapped in Armani. She was also one of the few people who had declined the engagement dinner invitation, claiming a prior commitment. Now I was grateful for her absence. "I'm fine," I lied, ready to get back to work. She studied me with sharp brown eyes. "Take some time off." "I don't need time off. I need to work. I need to focus on something other than." I gestured vaguely, unable to finish the sentence. "Sarah, you look like hell. And more importantly, you're about to become the center of a gossip storm that could affect your professional reputation. Take 2 weeks. Go somewhere. Clear your head. Come back when you're ready to be the brilliant strategist I hired, not the woman who had her life imploded in public." She was right, of course. She was always right. But the thought of 2 weeks alone with my thoughts, with no distractions, filled me with panic. "I'll take 1 week," I negotiated. 2 weeks. That's not a request. I went home and sat in my apartment, staring at the walls. Every surface held memories. Photos of David and me at various events, little gifts he had given me, a coffee mug with Mrs. Brennan printed on it that Jessica had given me as an engagement gift. The irony of that particular present now felt like a knife twist. On Wednesday, my mother called. I had been screening calls since Sunday night, but I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. "Sarah, darling, we need to talk." "I don't think there's anything to talk about, Mom." "There's everything to talk about. What happened at the restaurant was, well, it was shocking. But honey, people make mistakes. Maybe you should consider counseling. You and David could work through this." I almost dropped the phone. "Are you serious? He cheated on me with Jessica." "My sister, Mom." "Your daughter." "I know, sweetheart, and that was wrong. Very wrong. But marriages survive infidelity all the time. And Jessica, well, you know how she gets when she's drinking. She's always been jealous of you." "Jealous enough to sleep with my fiancé?" There was a long pause. "She called me yesterday. She's devastated about what she did. She wants to apologize." "I don't want her apology." "Sarah, she's your sister. Family is forever. Men come and go, but family doesn't betray family like this." I shouted, surprising myself with the volume of my voice. Family doesn't sleep with their sister's fiancé. Family doesn't destroy someone's life and then expect forgiveness. "You're upset. I understand. But in time." "No, Mom. There is no in time. There is no forgiveness for this. There is no working through this. David and Jessica showed me exactly who they are, and I believe them." I hung up before she could respond. That afternoon, David showed up at my door. He looked as terrible as I felt, unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing wrinkled clothes that suggested he had been sleeping in them. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face, but a larger part needed answers. "Can we talk?" he asked when I opened the door. "Talk? Can I come in?" "No." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Sarah, I know you hate me right now. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to understand that it meant nothing. Nothing. It was one night, one stupid, drunken mistake, and I have regretted it every single day since. One night that you never told me about. One night that you let me plan our entire future while knowing you had betrayed me. I wanted to tell you. I tried to tell you a dozen times. But I was terrified of losing you. So instead you let me find out in front of 50 of our closest friends and family members. I never thought Jessica would. I never imagined she would say anything. I studied his face. This man I had thought I would spend my life with. What did you imagine, David? That you would marry me and just live with the secret forever? That on our wedding day, our first anniversary, our golden anniversary, you would look at me and remember that you fucked my sister 3 months before we got engaged." He flinched as if I had hit him. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Help me understand. Help me understand how the man who claimed to love me more than life itself ended up in bed with my sister." David was quiet for a long moment, staring at his feet. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with tears. "I don't know," he whispered. "I don't know how it happened. I went to your place looking for you. You were in Milwaukee. Jessica was there, and she was upset about something. I don't even remember what. We started talking, and she opened a bottle of wine. Then another. And somewhere in there, the conversation changed. She started talking about how she always felt like she lived in your shadow, how you got everything handed to you while she had to fight for scraps. So you decided to comfort her. I was drunk, Sarah. We both were. And if she was flirting with me, touching my arm, standing too close. And for just a moment, I felt wanted in a different way. Not as your perfect boyfriend or your future husband. Just as me. As you. I repeated his words, letting them sink in. You felt wanted as you. Not as my boyfriend, but as you. So you decided to take what you wanted. It wasn't like that. What was it like, David? Describe it to me. I want to understand. Was she better than me? More exciting? More adventurous? What did she give you that I didn't? Nothing, he said desperately. She gave me nothing that you didn't give me 100 times better. It was a moment of stupidity, of weakness. And the moment it was over, I knew I had made the biggest mistake of my life. But you didn't tell me. I couldn't. I knew it would destroy us. So you chose to let me live a lie instead. I chose to protect what we had. I chose to fight for us. I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. You didn't fight for us, David. You gave up on us the moment you touched her. Everything that came after was just you being too much of a coward to face the consequences. We stood there in silence for several minutes. Finally, David reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I brought this for you, he said, holding out the engagement ring. In case you want it back. I don't want it back. I don't want anything that reminds me of you or us or any of this. Sarah, please. We can get past this. We can go to counseling. We can work through it. I love you. I've always loved you. That one night with Jessica didn't change that. No, I said quietly. But it changed me. But you didn't tell me. I couldn't. I knew it would destroy us. So you chose to let me live a lie instead. I chose to protect what we had. I chose to fight for us. I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. You didn't fight for us, David. You gave up on us the moment you touched her. Everything that came after was just you being too much of a coward to face the consequences. We stood there in silence for several minutes. Finally, David reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I brought this for you, he said, holding out the engagement ring. In case you want it back. I don't want it back. I don't want anything that reminds me of you or us or any of this. Sarah, please. We can get past this. We can go to counseling. We can work through it. I love you. I've always loved you. That one night with Jessica didn't change that. No, I said quietly. But it changed me. You look like shit, she announced, pushing past me into the apartment. Good morning to you too. When was the last time you showered? Or ate something that didn't come from a delivery app? She started unpacking groceries in my kitchen. Fresh vegetables, chicken, ingredients for actual meals. I'm fine, Ratch. You're not fine. You're wallowing. And while I understand the urge to wallow after what those two assholes did to you, enough is enough. I sank onto my couch, pulling a throw pillow into my lap. I don't know how to not wallow. I don't know how to do anything anymore. Rachel sat down beside me, her expression softening. Talk to me. Really talk to me. What's going on in that overanalytical brain of yours? I keep thinking about all the things I missed. All the signs that must have been there. David was distant for a few weeks after that weekend in Milwaukee, but I thought it was work stress. Jessica was acting weird around him whenever she came over, but I thought she was just being Jessica. I prided myself on being observant, on being smart, on making good decisions. But I didn't see any of it coming. Because they lied to you. Because they conspired to keep you in the dark. Because they're both selfish assholes who made a choice to betray someone who loved them unconditionally. But how did I choose such terrible people? What does that say about me? Rachel grabbed my shoulders and turned me to face her. It says you're a trusting person who believes the best in people. It says you're loyal and loving and generous with your heart. Those are good qualities, Sarah. Don't let their betrayal turn you into someone cynical and closed off. Maybe cynical and closed off would be safer. Safer maybe, but not better. Not happier. Over the next few hours, Rachel forced me to shower, helped me clean my apartment, and cooked the first real meal I had eaten in 2 weeks. We talked about everything and nothing. Work, her latest dating disasters, the book club we had been meaning to start for 3 years. It wasn't until she was getting ready to leave that she brought up the elephant in the room. "Have you talked to Jessica?" "No. And I'm not going to." "Sarah, don't. Please don't tell me I should forgive her because she's family. Don't tell me that blood is thicker than water or any of that bullshit. She made her choice. I'm not going to tell you to forgive her. But I am going to tell you that holding on to this anger is going to eat you alive. What am I supposed to do with it then? I don't know. But figure it out, because the Sarah I know doesn't let other people's shitty choices define her life." After Rachel left, I sat in my clean apartment and thought about what she had said. For 2 weeks, I had been living in the past, replaying the betrayal over and over, letting it consume every thought. But what was the alternative? The alternative was to decide who I wanted to be going forward. I made a list, an actual, physical list written on paper, because somehow that felt more real than typing it on my phone. At the top I wrote, things I know to be true about myself. It was harder than I expected. Everything I had thought I knew had been called into question. But slowly, carefully, I started writing. I am intelligent. I am capable. I am a good friend. I am resilient. I deserve better than what David and Jessica gave me. I will not let their choices destroy my ability to trust and love. The last one was the hardest to write, but also the most important. When I went back to work the following Monday, I felt different. Not healed, that would take time, but stronger. Clearer about what I wanted and what I wouldn't accept. Patricia took one look at me and nodded approvingly. There's the Sarah I hired, ready to get back to work. More than ready. She handed me a thick folder. New client. International expansion for a tech startup. They need a complete marketing strategy for the European market. Think you can handle it? I looked at the folder, then at Patricia's expectant face, and felt something I hadn't felt in 2 weeks. Excitement about the future. Absolutely. Over the next few months, I threw myself into work with an intensity that surprised even me. The European expansion project was complex and challenging, requiring research into cultural nuances and market differences I had never dealt with before. It was exactly what I needed, something that demanded all of my attention and intelligence, something that reminded me who I was when I wasn't defined by my relationships. The client meetings took me to London, Paris, and Berlin. I found myself falling in love with travel in a way I never had before. When I was with David, our trips had always been carefully planned, scheduled down to the minute. But traveling alone for work, I discovered the joy of wandering through foreign cities after meetings, of eating dinner by myself in tiny restaurants, of being anonymous in a crowd of strangers who knew nothing about my story. In Berlin, I met Klaus, a German marketing executive who was working on the same project from the European side. He was older than me, probably 40, with gray at his temples and laugh lines around his blue eyes. He was also married, which made him safe. I could enjoy his company without worrying about romantic complications. "You are different from most Americans I work with," he told me over dinner one night after a particularly productive strategy session. "How so?" "Most Americans, they want to make everything the same. Same message, same approach, just translated into different languages. But you understand that people are different. That what motivates someone in London is not what motivates someone in Munich. People are complicated," I said, thinking of my own recent education in human complexity. "Yes, complicated and surprising, often disappointing, but sometimes wonderfully so." I raised my glass of wine. "To complicated people." "To complicated people," he agreed, clinking his glass against mine. It wasn't until I was on the plane back to Chicago that I realized I had gone an entire evening without thinking about David or Jessica. For the first time in months, I had been just Sarah, not Sarah the betrayed fiancé or Sarah the naive sister, but Sarah the professional, Sarah the world traveler, Sarah the woman who could hold her own in any conversation. It felt like coming back to life. When I got home, there was a letter waiting for me. No return address, but I recognized Jessica's handwriting immediately. I almost threw it away without opening it. But something stopped me, maybe curiosity, maybe a masochistic need to know what she could possibly have to say after all this time. The letter was short. "Sarah, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand why. What I did was unforgivable. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness, because I know I don't deserve it. I'm writing to tell you that I'm getting help. Real help this time. I checked myself into a treatment facility 3 months ago. Not just for the drinking, but for everything. The jealousy, the anger, the need to destroy good things, just because I couldn't have them myself. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did and why I did it. The truth is, I was jealous of you. I've always been jealous of you. You were everything I wanted to be. Smart, successful, loved. And when I saw how happy you were with David, something inside me just broke. That doesn't excuse what I did. Nothing excuses what I did. But I wanted you to know that it was never about him. It was about me and my own broken heart and my inability to be happy for the person I should love most in the world. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Love, Jessica. I read the letter 3 times, waiting to feel something. Anger, maybe. Or sadness. Or the urge to forgive. But all I felt was empty. Like the words were about someone else's life. Someone else's pain. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I would feel something about it. Maybe someday I would want to respond. But not today. Today I had a life to build. 1 year later. I'm standing in my new apartment in River North, looking out at the Chicago skyline as the sun sets over Lake Michigan. The apartment is smaller than my old place, but it's mine in a way the old one never was. Every piece of furniture, every piece of art, every book on the shelves. I chose it all for me, not for some imagined future with someone else. The European expansion project was such a success that Patricia offered me a promotion to Director of International Markets. It means more travel, more challenges, more opportunities to discover parts of myself I never knew existed. Next week, I'm flying to Tokyo for a new client presentation. After that, Sydney. Then Sao Paulo. My passport is getting full, and my perspective is getting broader with every stamp. I still think about that night sometimes, the night everything changed. But now, instead of seeing it as the night my life was destroyed, I see it as the night my real life began. The night I stopped living someone else's version of who I should be and started figuring out who I actually am. I never responded to Jessica's letter. I heard through my mother that she's doing well in treatment, that she's staying sober, that she's working as a counselor at a rehabilitation center. I'm glad for her, in the abstract way you might be glad for a stranger's good fortune. But she's not my sister anymore. She's just someone I used to know who shares my DNA. As for David, I heard he moved to Denver. Someone told me he's engaged again, to a woman he met at a coffee shop. I hope she's smarter than I was. I hope she asks the right questions. My phone buzzes with a text from Klaus. He divorced his wife 6 months ago, not because of me, but because they had been growing apart for years. We've been talking more frequently since then, and he's flying to Chicago next month for a conference. We've made plans for dinner. I don't know if anything will come of it. I don't know if I'm ready for romance again, or if I ever will be. But I know that whatever happens, it will be my choice, made with my eyes wide open, based on who I am now rather than who I used to be. The woman I am now is stronger, smarter, more independent than the woman who walked into that engagement dinner a year ago. She was so eager to please, so desperate to be loved, so willing to ignore red flags in favor of maintaining the perfect image she had built in her mind. This woman, the woman I've become, doesn't need anyone else's validation to know her worth. She doesn't define herself by her relationships or measure her success by how well she fits into someone else's life plan. This woman trusts carefully, loves deliberately, and refuses to settle for anything less than she deserves. I pour myself a glass of wine, a good bottle I bought myself to celebrate closing the Tokyo deal, and step out onto my balcony. The city spreads out below me, millions of lights beginning to twinkle in the gathering dusk. Somewhere out there are people falling in love, people getting married, people making promises they may or may not keep. Somewhere out there are also people discovering their own strength, people rebuilding their lives from the ground up, people learning that the end of one story can be the beginning of a much better one. My phone rings. It's Rachel. "Hey, world traveler," she says when I answer. "How's the view from your ivory tower?" "Pretty spectacular, actually." "How was your date?" "Terrible." He chewed with his mouth open, and spent the entire dinner talking about his ex-girlfriend. But hey, at least I'm putting myself out there, right? Right. That's what matters. Speaking of putting yourself out there, have you decided what you're wearing to dinner with Klaus next month? I laugh. It's just dinner, Ratch. It's never just dinner. But I'm proud of you for saying yes. Thanks. I think. Sarah. Yeah. I know I've said this before, but I'm really proud of who you've become this year. I know it was hard. I know there were days when you wanted to give up. But look at you now. I do look at myself, reflected in the glass door behind me. The woman looking back is confident, poised, successful. She's wearing a dress she bought for herself in Paris, jewelry she chose because she liked it, not because it matched someone else's expectations. She looks happy. Thanks, Raj, for everything, for not letting me wallow forever. That's what friends are for. Now go enjoy your fancy wine and your fancy view. You've earned both. After we hang up, I stay on the balcony until the stars come out. It's peaceful here, 30 stories above the chaos of the city, peaceful and quiet, and exactly where I want to be. Tomorrow, I'll go to work and tackle the challenges of building a global marketing strategy. Next week, I'll fly to Tokyo and navigate the complexities of Japanese business culture. Next month, I'll have dinner with Klaus and see if there's potential for something new, something real, something built on truth rather than fantasy. But tonight, I'm just going to stand here and appreciate how far I've come, how much I've grown, how much I've learned about resilience and self-worth, and the difference between being alone and being lonely. A year ago, I thought my life was over when David and Jessica betrayed me. I thought the story of Sarah Collins had reached its tragic end. But that wasn't the end of my story. It was just the end of the first chapter. The rest of my story, the interesting parts, the adventures, the real love when I'm ready for it, the successes I'll build with my own hands, that story is still being written. And I can't wait to see how it turns out. If you like this story, leave your opinion in the comments and, of course, leave a like and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Big hug and see you soon.